Hey, how's it going? I hope you're having a fantastic day. This is a little video lecture that deals with influencing behavior. So what we're going to do is we're going to build on a model called the BCOS model, which talks about benefits, costs, the influence of others, and then the self influencing the perceptions of self, and using that idea on strategies or tactics, if you will, where we can encourage consumers and clients to consider their changing either behavior or adopting a new behavior that is suitable for them, that helps support this model, the elements of this particular model. So again, the strategies of influencing behavior, please reach out to me if you have any questions, and please enjoy as well. Yep, take lots of notes and pop some popcorn and have fun with this. Alrighty, so we're going to talk a little bit then about influencing behavior, and if you'll recall, um, there's a model by Andreessen which deals with benefits that the customer receives or client receives, the cost they have to give up in order to receive those benefits, the external influences of others, and then the internal influences of the consumer's perception of themselves, either their current self or their perceived future self, the BCOS model. So as we think about this model based on these components, and we want to think about how we can influence the decision-making process, we may want to make modifications in how the consumer perceives these four things. What we're wanting to think about as a marketer is how the consumer makes a decision, and altering or influencing, better is a better term, what they believe about the offer that we're making, the offer that competitors have. We can so what type of alternatives are there uh, that can satisfy their need or want, the solutions. Then also, as I mentioned, what we think about competitors, we may want to influence how the consumer makes a decision. And there's an idea called a decision weight. Consumers use criteria to compare options to make a decision based upon an option, and they often use decision weights. If we can alter those, that would be a good thing. We can communicate to the consumer or the client pros and cons for each offer that they have. So we have an offer to satisfy a need, but the competitors do too, and we might be able to build upon maybe some negatives of other offers. We could also build upon positives of our offer that we make. We can tap into the others element of the BCOS model and remind consumers and our clients of the positive effects that referral groups have. And we can also tap into the self element of this as well, of this model as well. And so again, so as a marketer, we want to tap into or communicate to the potential client elements that influence the benefits, the costs, others like reference, and then self-image. If we can tap into one of those four areas, and then we have a stronger possibility then of being able to influence their decision-making process. So we're going to walk through each of these steps here in a brief fashion, just to kind of support the concept of some of these strategies that we can begin with. So changing beliefs. When we want to change beliefs, we reason and we discuss the pros and the cons of our offer in order to change a decision maker's belief in its particular value. So it may be that a consumer or a client has a preconceived notion of our offer and what we want them to do and what they think they're going to get and so on. So what we need to do is confirm the positive benefits, and we need to be clear about the costs, but make sure that those costs are less perceived to be less than the benefits that the consumer is going to receive. So we need to reaffirm then the proposed value. And you may recall that value is kind of a ratio between the benefits that the client will receive and the costs they need to give up. So we need to make sure that this is kind of clear, that they clearly understand what they're getting for what they have to give up with our offer, and that it is a positive thing. They're receiving more benefits than they are having to give up in cost. Another tactic not only is to talk about the offer that we have within their selection set, but talk about our competitors and put our offer into context, like position towards them. Ideally, we have some type of differentiating aspect that makes our product better than our competitors, at least on some criteria, at least on some level or factor that's important to the customer. You might not be better than your competitors on everything. Like, for instance, you may have better quality than your competitor, but you might also be more expensive. So you're better. So what we do is we focus on quality, obviously, and we push that as what makes us different and why the consumer should buy our product. We stay away from what we're not as good at, and that's what we do. So when we talk about competitors, we don't talk about how our competitors are less expensive. We talk about how their quality is inferior to ours, and so we position the product that way, and we want our consumers to think about our position relative to our competitors in that context. So again, we want to illustrate the differences between our two products or offers within the consumer, and by doing that, we are making an argument that our product or our service will serve the client in a better way. So changing these beliefs then is something that we could look towards doing. Another option, or another element here we talked about, was reweighting options. So as I mentioned, decision makers consider different aspects of an offer in a different way. So sometimes we think of price as important. Sometimes we think of availability as important. Maybe different product features or service features are important. How much time we have to give up might be important to us. The way other people, our friends, are going to think about us might be important to us. How much I have to commit to this, how much behavioral change I have to make. These are all different criteria, and I will assign a weight or a relative importance to each one of these types of things. So some of these elements or criteria that I'm using to make a decision are weighed more than others. What we want to do is we want the consumer to look at, to weigh the things we do well heavier than the things we do more poorly. So again, if I have a advantage in quality, then what I want is I want my consumers to weigh quality as a factor that's more important in their decision than they do price. And if they weigh my factor that I do better higher, then they'll be more likely to buy my product. So resetting the relative importance of what the decision maker places on various aspects of the offer is important. Obviously, we want to encourage the respondent or the customer, that we want them to consider the benefits that we do well or that we excel at more highly, and we want to downplay the benefits that our competitor excels at, or downplay the benefits that we don't have an advantage in. Okay, so think about that complex decision-making model and how consumers weigh options that they have, and think about how we can influence the weighting that they ultimately use. Reweighting options would be a good thing, a good strategy for us to use. Other options here, or other things we can do, we can call attention to unrecognized favorable consequences or aspects of our product. And so while we certainly want to focus on the things that we know we do well in terms of the benefits that we can offer and that distinguish us from our competitors, we may also want to highlight things that the customer hasn't thought of yet. Unanticipated benefits might be another thing that we look at. So unanticipated, like the customer might not realize that by attending the social club, they're going to be introduced to a lot of high achieving people. And by meeting a lot of high achieving people, it raises your self-esteem. That's not something that you really recognize or think about necessarily. All I'm thinking about is going to, the civic club, and maybe I'm going to join, and maybe not. But I don't really recognize that, well, if I join the civic club, I'm going to be rubbing shoulders with more influential people, and that will make me feel better about myself. It'll raise my self-esteem. But if the marketer brings that to my awareness, then that's a good thing. That'd be a positive thing for me to now know that I didn't know before. So that's calling attention to unrecognized favorable consequences. Could also add favorable consequences if the marketer can add a new benefit that has some type of effect of creating some new or otherwise unrecognized favorable consequence. That's good. So if I can add things like maybe I could extend an offer time. So join our gym now, and it's normally a 12-month membership. We'll give you a 13-month membership. That extra month is free. Again, we could use some promotions like I'm temporarily lowering my price. I could spread your payments over time and things like that. So I could create some new positive consequence or some new aspect. By spreading your payments over time, you can spend that extra money that you otherwise would spend on the gym membership. You could spend that money on something else. Or maybe I could tie in free smoothies at our fruit bar as part of an incentive, and that will help your dieting plan that goes along with your working out plan. So if I can create some new incentives or new favorable reasons for the customer to buy that they hadn't thought about before, that would be what we're talking about here. Again, fantastic strategies that tap into the BCOS elements. That's what we're keying in on here. We want strategies that influence benefits, that influence costs, that influence others, or influence myself or self-worth or self-image. So positive others and self-affirmation techniques here. Remind the potential client the positive aspects of what people will think when they engage in your product or service. People will think better of you. These people who you respect and who respect you will think more positively of you if you engage in this new habit or this new product. Right? So remind the consumer of the positive effects that others will have or others will think about you as a result of using this new product or service. Confirm and support self-image and self-assurance. So this is the last part here. This would be the last thing. So self-affirmation. Make sure that you discuss and provide illustrations of how your offer, your service, supports the decision maker's sense or image of themselves. That's funny. That should be an S, right? Sense of self. Make sure that you illustrate how this behavior that you're suggesting to them promotes their image of self and actually their future self. Working out, joining our workout team here, or going to yoga and engaging in these special services we have here at the gym helps you be a better you and also helps you achieve a future self that you want to be. So, tapping into that self-image is a real positive way to kind of motivate consumers to think about your offer and get you into that really, really narrow selection set that you want to be in among their decisions that they're making. Okay, so summary time. What did we talk about here? We want to influence the different aspects of the BCOS model. And you'll remember that stands for benefits, costs, others, and self. So there are 7 different ways that we can do, kind of do this. And any of these ways, you just think about, how can I influence how people think about my benefits? How can I influence how people think about our costs? How can I influence how others will perceive the client, as referrals or referrants? How can the client think about themselves in a better light as a result of my product or service? That's basically what we want to do. Those questions are how we want to think about that. We can change people's beliefs about alternatives and our competitors. We can help them change their decision criteria and decision weights to favor what we do well as opposed to what we do poorly. We can create or we can build awareness of features that the consumer or client doesn't really know about yet or doesn't recognize as something that we can do for them. So unknown or unrealized benefits that you can build awareness for. That's what we're talking about here in both 4 and 5. We're either creating a new benefit that the customer is not aware of, or we're bringing to their attention a benefit that they'll receive that they otherwise wouldn't know about. We want to tap into the O and then the S, so we want to remind the consumer of the positive influence that this decision has with them relative to their peers and their referent groups and people they look up to. And then also we want to confirm that the decision that they're making here supports their self-image. Okay, so this then is a discussion of ways we can influence the BCOS model, ways we can motivate a consumer or client to adopt our option by tapping into some of the psychological triggers that help them or cause them to make the decisions that they ultimately make. Okay, so have any questions? Please reach out again, rewind, and take a look at the video again if you need to. Correspond this information with their text, and otherwise reach out again if you have any questions, and have a great day. Thanks.